And this, since we first planted this, we've been mulching it from the very beginning. When this hillside was bare, because we had the tractors come in and clear it, we actually covered the whole hillside with mulch. It was completely mulched, about 6 inches deep. And it was amazing because within maybe 6 months, that 6 inches of mulch had turned into about 2 inches of mulch and 4 inches of soil. And that was just an amazing sort of kickstart for our orchard. Since then, we planted these about 3 years ago. About once to twice a year, depending, we will come in and we'll add sort of another layer of mulch. And usually we compost it, make from our own compost. We add in some fertilizer and then we cover it, tuck it in. And you can see, essentially this decomposed mulch. And that's where you get your microbial life. And for fruit trees, we do a lot of the sheet mulching. That's probably where 50% of our mulch goes, is this to our fruit trees. Just because not only is it protecting our soil, it's decomposing, turning into food for the trees. It's helping retain moisture around our trees, especially here in Waianae. It's very hot. So any way we can try to hold moisture, keep it around the tree, the better. So we're not just letting it go off into the sky. And then on top of it, it's weed suppression. So, as our eventual goal is that we will keep on extending, every time we mulch around the trees, we add another 2 feet of sheet mulch around it. And eventually we won't have to do any weed whacking. And that's another best management practice. So this is our newest planted orchard. This is actually part of a grant that we're working on with Drew in India and Department of Ag Specialty Block Grant. And the basis was focused on avocado production and sort of looking at it from a more of a commercial scale, and but it also trying to support the farmer so that we wouldn't be reliant on a nursery. And it was sort of trying to teach the farmer the skills of from A to B, not just okay, this is how you plant, da, da, da. It's no, this is how you actually you start your root stock if you want to learn how to graft. And then once your root stock is grown, then this is how you do the grafting. And Drew was sort of the one leading that. I don't know if you guys know, but Drew's a really good grafter. Yeah. And then we planned out this orchard. So there's actually 50 avocado trees that we planted. We planted half at middle of April and the second half in middle of May. So these have most been only in for 2 to 1 months. There's 12 varieties in here. But so you can see what we did with these guys is the first step was we came in with a tractor, and yeah, you see all this back area, this looked like that. So same thing, was covered with grass, sort of holding the soil in place, for the last however many years. We came through with our tractor, we popped out all the stumps for the halekoa. We did some rough sort of scraping, trying to not disturb too much of that topsoil, since that's where we want to keep that. And then once we had it sort of cleared, then we laid out the orchard, and it's sort of the reason we designed it on sort of an angle rather than going like this is so that we can use these spaces in between for alley cropping. Avocados, we probably have at least 3 years until they start growing out to the point where we can't use this middle space, and even then we can just start switching up what we're planting to things that are more shade loving. And then eventually we just completely phase them out. And so then you can see we did more sheet mulching. We used a fertilizer called Sustain when we planted, and then we also added some gypsum around the base of each of the trees because we have a very heavy clay, as I mentioned, and avocados, they like very good drainage. So the reason most people don't grow avocados out here is because of that factor, because of that clay soil. My theory is that by planting on a hillside, we should hopefully be able to fake that drainage in the sense that it's all going to go downhill. And then the gypsum over time should also help loosen up those soils. If we turn around, you can sort of see what the alley crops will be sort of looking like. We have these two will hopefully be planted here in the next week or two. So there's one little alley on the other side we planted cherry tomatoes on. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the idea with these is that we are going to be doing every other alley will be planted with production crops, and then the in-between will be with a cover crop. And the idea is that as we harvest the crop and the cover crop is also incorporated, it will just shift down, right? So eventually every field will be getting, or every row will be getting cover cropped, and then right immediately after that, a crop will go into it. And then long term, the tree rows, we're gonna sheet mulch everything in between, so it'll be no more grass. And then we're gonna start putting in sort of some perennial long term cover crop, which we're still trying to sort of figure out. We're working with Jamie Barton and yes, Healthy Soils Hawaii, and this is like a 4 or 5 different like programs that we're actually incorporating to this. We're working at NRCS on a windbreak equip project. So we're going to be incorporating some pomegranate windbreaks along the edge. Then working with Jamie on with the Hawaii Farmers Union on a cover crop trial that's going to be end of August for the mini convention that's being hosted here. We're working with Dr. Kuhn Hui on another orchard cover cropping project, and then of course we're working with Drew. So this is a very this orchard is really cool because it has all these partners coming together to sort of work for the similar goals of like soil health and productivity. And like I said, eventually as the trees sort of grow in, the idea would be that those alleys would just turn into perennial, like sort of companion plants, whether it's like some pigeon pea or comfrey, that's really looking at that long-term soil health and adding the nutrients in so that we can minimize our inputs that we have to do. Just if you look here on your left, this is this sort of flushed out, this is Glaracidia. This is one of our alley sort of wind breaks, alley crops, sort of nitrogen fixers. Are you guys familiar with Glaracidia? So Glaracidia is a really great tree. It grows very fast growing. You can coppice it. Coppicing, you chop it back all the way down to a stump. There's not a single leaf on it. And 6 months later, it's 10 feet tall again. And then you can take that, you can mulch it. And it's also, like I said, it's a nitrogen fixer. So every time you chop it, all that growth is chopped back. The roots that are underground, they're going to die back. They're going to release all that nitrogen that they have captured. That's, the roots probably reaching out to the edges of the citrus. And now, once the roots die, the trees can access that nitrogen that has been stored there. And this is just a repetitive cycle that you can keep on going. Not only is it providing nutrients, it's also providing a windbreak, providing habitat for beneficial insects. So eventually we'll just keep on incorporating more and more of these sort of, we call them buffer zones, where it's like, yes, it's not really benefiting us monetarily through like production, but it's having this sort of long-term health sort of goal in mind.